right. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to welcome Josh Kamrath, who's the CEO of Bongo, and Christine Kukich from the Training Sherpa. So Christine, if you don't know her, is quickly becoming an authority on all of the ways that AI can help people improve the efficiency and also the effectiveness of their education programs. And so I'm just gonna kind of kick off with some conversation starters and we'll get through it. So Christine and Josh, I'm pretty sure people are already aware of all the amazing ways that AI can help with content production in learning programs. And that's obviously a great place to start because creating that content has always been a pretty slow and expensive task. But what we haven't really been talking about is what happens after people consume that content. And so in terms of AI tools, where do we go from here?
I think that the goal that we've always had with learning has been about building skills, right? And whether those skills are L&D related activities or they're product driven through customer education, the idea is to be better, right? To let the learner be better once they finish this particular learning opportunity. And what we're starting to see now, once content development has been made a little bit more efficient and productive, then we're now moving into what happens next in terms of assessments, right? This is the place where we get an opportunity to work with Bongo, right? So for some feedback loop activity, we're going to see the structure that kicks in around being able to generate questions and answers for assessment comprehension types of questions. If you're into certifications, AI can certainly help you build out what that can look like, right? What your questions and scenarios can look like there. And then we add in those additional levels, gamification and AI analytics, right? Where we can now start to analyze what everybody's doing through the feedback loops that we're providing, the personalization that we've got. All of those kick in together and round out to get us to that business usage, right? The business case. The numbers that we all need to justify what's going on in our environments so we can get that impact that we need to give up to leadership.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree there, Christine. And it's exciting seeing some of the ways people like yourself have been applying AI tools to both level up their programs and ultimately level up the verification of outcomes that, for those learners or for the people becoming certified or credentialed. And but it's also really cool to just see how AI is effectively like a force multiplier.
Right.
Force multiplying both themselves, their teams, but also the impact that the curriculum or these initiatives are able to make. And, I would say from my perspective, as Emily mentions, democratizing content creation, like making it super accessible and easy to use, like that has incredible value. But then, there's tools like Bongo, which are effectively creating the next generation of value and impacts that can be realized through AI.
That's great. And Christine, you already touched on a few of these in your last response, but can you share some more insights on the various ways AI is being used specifically for skill practice and skill development? So more kind of the development of the application.
Yeah, I think it really kind of divides into three types of categories of usage when you're working with it. We are seeing a huge uptick now in training simulations, in the ability to go in and actually perform a task as part of your comprehension of a particular learning opportunity, right? A skill. And that area has built up lots of different vendors utilizing AI to get at a personalization so that they too can build a feedback loop. We're seeing, I'm calling them kind of AI enhancers in my work with categorizing vendors, right? It's getting more challenging as we start to talk about AI. And I would put Bongo in this category too, is the whole idea of that feedback loop for the personalization. So I can go in, present the content, give a comprehensive analysis of their ability to perform against that content, and then iterate as necessary depending on how well they perform in that comprehension phase. So it gives us that great opportunity to build in a much more personalized structure and to work with chatbots, which is that third category I think that we're going to talk about, which is in this business, we can set it up so that we can leverage chatbots to converse, right? To basically set up a Siri type Alexa conversation around what we do for learning, which again, the democratization, I can't even say the word today, democratization that Josh was talking about before, right?
No, that's great. And I think it opens up a whole world of that kind of interaction and, like you said, personalization, because nobody had the time or the resources to give that one-on-one attention to their learners before. And now with the genesis of AI and, the feedback and everything, that they can really get that one-on-one attention and learn in real time.
Completely agree with that. I think the concept of real time is where we stand. We're moving into a much more on-demand structure. And as we digitize that environment a lot more, it really does help if we can build in those structures, right? Simulations, feedback, just to get where we want to go.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think, like we mentioned earlier on, I think people are getting more comfortable with the tools that are out there for content creation. But with all of these tools that you just mentioned, how do you suggest that, people kind of move from step one to step two and integrating these into their workflows?
Jump into the deep end of the pool. We don't have a lot of resources about how to use AI. We are starting to see courses on prompt generation, which is still the underlying tool, right? Generative AI is still the underlying tool. Even as we move into some of these other technologies, generative AI is still the heart of what we're doing. So we are seeing opportunities on Coursera, Udemy, right? All of these places that talk about prompt generation. MIT has a really good AI program. So if you want to delve a little bit more deeply into language models and the structure of how we got where we are now, MIT gives free courses, right? So you don't have to pay for any of it into their library of content on AI. I would say start to follow specific people online, and this is just a blatant plug. I talk about AI all the time on LinkedIn. So the hashtag that I'm using for most of my content is AI NCE hashtag. And that gives us an opportunity to just easily access all of the content around that. And as other people are posting about AI, I am encouraging them to also leverage that hashtag so you can get in there and see what's going on with AI in customer education. And to a certain extent, if you're in an L&D role as well, many of the basics are the same, regardless of which side of the learning environment we're really working on. So that would be the way to go, I think, to get started. If you haven't already, then just dig in. Start playing around with some prompts for ChatGPT. There's several samples out there. I've got some in LinkedIn. Rod Cherkis published about 250, I think, of his favorites for customer success, and some of those are education-driven types of prompts. Again, just do the search on LinkedIn, and you'll find him. CHERKAS.
Great. Those are some great resources. And so just going back to both you and Josh mentioned business outcomes earlier in the conversation, and whether it's L&D, whether it's customer ed, we know that it's important to work across the organization. So, what would you suggest that, I guess, which groups in the organization would you suggest that people in L&D or customer ed really try and work with as they try and implement more AI?
As we get started in being able to align with the business, the best way to do that, regardless of which side, again, of the learning model you're on, customer ed or L&D, I think that learning needs to be able to speak the language of the business. And what that means then is going to finance and sales as a starting point. If you haven't already made friends with people in those teams, they do budget control. So it's always good to know people who control the money, right? And they help us learn the language of the business, because the language of our business is most often making money. And past that, once we actually start to focus on AI, I think that the teams that you really need to learn to work with effectively are your legal teams and InfoSec, because they're the people that are going to approve any contracts for software that you want to purchase. Right? They're going to look at that, and they're going to go into Adobe just released their new terms of service last week, their T's and C's. Watch, if you haven't already seen the uproar that came from that, go ahead and read it. Several articles came out about it. It is kind of scary, basically saying that we own anything that you put in Creative Cloud, and we're going to be able to do whatever we want with it. That's a very broad mandate. Most legal teams are going to go, I don't think so. And so there's that. InfoSec is the other team that you'll need to work with. I think the concept of working with InfoSec is important just because they're the risk managers of your organization. They're the ones that take a look at the ways that you connect, the ways that you share data, the ways that you manage your own data, and all of that. And it's really important that you understand what's happening with AI and how to train or not train for those models, right? There's the basic boundaries that have been scary in the last year and a half since generative AI just kind of exploded in the marketplace, have been really, I think, important to give us the background to say, now we can lock things down more, right? We're starting to see, if you buy a ChatGPT license, even a Teams license, right? A small two-person team. The same with Anthropic and the guys at Claude.ai. Gemini's doing the same thing. The guys at Meta are doing this with their Llama versions of generative AI. Right? All of these guys are building these language models, but they are giving you an opportunity to kind of opt out from training those models, where they're going to put you in a kind of a locked box and say, I'm going to give you a copy of the language model. You get to train it. You get to give it the things that it needs to grow and learn your business, and then turn around and say, every once in a while, I'm going to pop back out there to the web and say, here's some other things that have come in. And that opportunity now gives us the capability to compartmentalize in ways that we didn't have in the beginning, right? When generative AI first came out, that wasn't an option. And now it is, which gives us some strength to be able to go back to InfoSec and legal and say, these are the things that I want to be able to do. Here's how I'm going to protect our data. Here's how we're going to protect our customers' data, our employees' data, the personally identifiable information that we have about all of these things. HIPAA, if you're in healthcare, right? And any rules and regulations that come up around data security in some of those more locked down types of environments, security, financials, right? Banking, right? All of these industries that require a little bit more lockdown. That's what this gives us now, is the opportunity to leverage AI even when we are practicing in those industries.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because those are typically a lot more stringent.
Right. Right. We have harder rules that we need to accommodate.
Yeah, and unfortunately we lost Josh. Josh's Wi-Fi. Hopefully he'll be back. But he's actually doing a series on his LinkedIn right now on what are the questions that you should be asking, either if you're integrating AI, what questions should you be asking to make sure that everything is going to be secure. And I think what you're talking about is great, to take that information and kind of arm yourself with it to bring to your teams internally. So that's really
Yeah,
helpful.
I'm just getting ready to push out 3 blogs to the SEDMA blogs for Customer Education Market Management Association. For those of you who don't know, but that the blog posts are focused on risk, on AI and risk within the organization. So if you're interested, again, they'll be out there on the blog page at sedma.org. And that the structure is pretty straightforward there, right, Emily? I mean, we need to prepare. Anytime you want a new toy, right? Anytime you decide you want to utilize something new in your tech stack, you need to justify it, right? You need to be able to identify exactly what problems it's going to solve. You need to go in and clearly identify how you can utilize this effectively, how it's going to up your productivity, and what it's going to cost, right? And all of those things then go to the teams to identify. Maybe you already have things in your tech stack that leverage AI, and you just didn't know it,
Yeah.
right? And by learning about those tools, that can be arguments for new tools.
Yeah, that's
Because
great. And that actually nicely leads into my last question, which is about, we've talked today about, AI for content creation and learning personalization, skills practice, performance support. So how can we, what do you see as the future of really combining all of those fun things into a more holistic strategy?
when I talk about AI, I divide all of the technologies and all of the tools into 5 categories. We talk about personalization, which everybody sees that already. AI is the engine that runs your recommendation engines in your learning management systems. It gives you your Netflix, you should watch this list. The structure there, gamification is the second category. The ability that people like Duolingo have to generate interest by saying, I'll badge you up, I'll give you more points for these kinds of things. The data analysis piece, which is ginormous now that we all are getting data, right, from this. We have content building, which we've talked about, right? That's the one that where everyone's getting a little bit more comfortable because the tools are incorporating that already. And then, of course, the assessment pieces. And when you put all of these together and you leverage chatbots and you leverage the structure that we have around the in-app tools that we can build, the voice activation, right? The Siri-ness of learning opportunities. I think what we end up with is a personalized AI tutor.
Yeah.
That can help us. I did some work. Dr. Philippa Hardiman out of the UK did an article a few months back. And I read through the article and then I kind of put that together in my last blog post on SEDMA, where I talked about the concept of leveraging all of these technologies and mixing and matching to get something that's right for your learner base, whatever that is. Again, customer ed, L&D, I don't know that it matters, but it does give you an opportunity to truly identify with a guide, right? My training Sherpa, that gives you the opportunity to direct people and coach them in the right ways, given the learning path that they're on, given the persona that they're and the applications and where we're putting them within the organizational structure and what we're trying to get them to learn, right? And I think that's the key right there, Emily. I think that the structure that we see is the ability to create that personalized AI tutor in the environment. And those of you in L&D have a much broader mandate with that, because you can cross many different types of skills to build out. If I'm talking about customer ed, I'm boxing people in a little bit more because it's really targeted to my product.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a great point, because we keep talking about business impact, right? And so what better way is to enable and arm people with resources at their fingertips so that they can make sure that they're, not only learning the content, but can apply it properly, right? To
Right.
whether it's L&D to, perform better in their roles or customer ed. So I think it's a great point about we have a lot of tools in our toolkit right now, and the next step is just figuring out how to tie them
Integrate
all.
them all. Yep. How
Mhm.
to build them all and take the Legos and build what you need.
Yeah, and I think the other, talking about content creation in the beginning and how it's a long, arduous task that AI is now helping us to do much faster and more efficient. I think the next the next leg, which is this feedback loop that we're talking about,
Mhm.
is just something people probably haven't even considered before because they just never had the time to do it. So
It's hard to build the plan,
yeah.
right? It's hard to build what your tech stack is going to look like, given the fact that this technology is changing so rapidly.
Yeah, so I think this is going to open a whole world up for people to really create better learning programs and more holistic learning programs. And so really excited to see what everyone in these roles are going to do. And they can always find you on LinkedIn because, as you mentioned, you're always talking about the new cool stuff that's out there. So thank you so much, Christine, for joining us today.
It was fun.
Yeah, great time. All right, talk soon. Bye.
Later.